everybody, welcome back to another episode. I made a little change to the name of the YouTube channel because I figured Tetragrammaton was a little too weird and people wouldn't understand what it was. So as you might have noticed from today's title, it's kind of a big one today. I figured it was maybe I felt ready to maybe talk about it, and God had maybe given me enough sort of inspiration to find a way to talk about it. It had much to do with the actual rapture, but there was this part of the dream where I was sort of being lifted up into heaven. But yeah, I'll get to that. So I'm kind of thinking where to start here. It's one of those life-changing experiences, and you wonder, but it's just a dream, but it's not just a dream. And then when you try to tell people, even your family or even your spouse, it's they're maybe not gonna understand, you know? But it's one of those, if you've had them, you kind of know, and yeah. I don't really remember where the dream starts because it was kind of like watching, the Pulp Fiction movie where it's where it's all backwards. It really skips from scene to scene abruptly and quickly. Yeah, I think it kind of started off, I'm sort of sitting in almost what feels like a bench, and then I look around me and I kind of notice that there's all these weird beings around, and they don't look super dangerous or nothing like that, but immediately I'm sort of made known that they're kind of lesser demons or something like that. And then they get really interested and they look at me and they kind of approach me. And then I'm just sort of whoa, no, this is scaring me. I get a really strong flight reaction, and in my I just scream God, God, help me, get me out of here. And it's immediately then I noticed that from my left out runs an angel to help, and there's another one coming from my right, and he runs over. And he hands out his arm like this, so I can grab it. And I just grab it. And then I just remember feeling the angel that came from the left was oh man, he grabbed your arm, that type of thing. And then we're zapped away. And yeah, and then, and by now I already know, I know for sure, I'm made aware that the whole, my spirit is made quite aware that this is one of those encounter dreams, and then we're up in the clouds, and it gets pretty cliche. I was quite surprised how cliche this was, because I've had other visions and dreams where it wasn't so. It didn't look like one of those medieval or Renaissance paintings where where everything looks so, pardon the term, but kind of made up, Maybe it's so that when I talk about it, people will be yeah, I've had, they've all had a similar experience base, right? Yeah, I can recognize that too. So we're up in the clouds, and it's yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. It's quite spectacular, It's ethereal, it's sublime, it's wonderful, and you just, it's as if your heart is just at such a more pure state, you're just so much in that moment, and it's not you have all these normal life, you're, it's hard to explain. Maybe a psychologist would know. But there I am, and then I see God, and immediately it's God. But he's wearing a white robe, right? just a white robe. I guess he likes chilling in his robe, you know? And he's standing and he's walking, but I can't see his face. I can just see that he has a white beard, literally, right? This is where it gets really like cliche, and he's got white hair like an old man. And his face is just lit up bright. You can't see his face. It's just a really bright light. And his hands are the same. He's walking kind of with his hands down, and the white robes of his the sleeves on his white robe come down to here, and he's walking like this, and you can see from the palm of his hands it's just a white light, both of his hands. And I'm just like, whoa, no way. I literally fall to the ground, right? Like, bam. And I'm just like, oh, it's God, oh, wondrous God, you know? And it's just a freight train of like feeling very humble and wanting to tell him that you know, you're just like mind blown that you're there, and you wanna like give reverence. And then walk, and I'm on the ground, I can't even see him no more, but he walks around, he comes close, and he walks around and he starts touching my back, and he starts sort of almost like just patting you down. And for some reason he goes down to my left calf and he starts touching it, and he starts almost like he's massaging it. He wants me to know, but he's also telling me, oh, it's okay, it's okay. It's okay, you know. You know, like, oh, how nice that you're showing so much reverence. That's good, that's good. And he's touching my leg. Look, I grew up in Asia, so there was almost like this Asian adult feedback vibe that I was getting from God. Like, he was like, you know, that kind of thing. And I was just like, oh, I wonder why he's touching my left leg like that. But I also kind of knew afterwards when I woke up that must be something that he wants me to remember as the time goes by, because that will link with other things that are happening in my life. And next scene, I'm sort of like catapulted into the next phase of the stream. Man, it was going quick, you know. And I literally see Jesus. And again, reasonably cliche. He looks like the standard Jesus image, and I believe he also has the white light coming from his hand. Yeah, he has the white light coming from his hands, because he also had these lights, and he's wearing a white robe, just like God. But he's got light brown, well, brown hair, right? Brown hair, and I knew it was Jesus, because you can see his face, and he wants you to know that it's Jesus. And he's kind of walking up towards me, and then he takes an abrupt right turn, and he just starts walking to the right in the clouds. And immediately the thought that came into my head at that time, and you could see this sort of the look on his face, was just like, immediately he's showing in motion how everything he's done, he'd do it again in a heartbeat. Because I kept thinking like, oh man, that's like, how could God ask somebody to do that for anybody else, you know? I was thinking like, that's just so heavy, that's so heavy, man, you know? And then Jesus is like, bang, and he just goes. And it's like he's like the servant, man. He just does this, man, like without thinking, right? And he's showing he'd do it again. That's the level of dedication to this God. And, you know, God, Jesus, you know, they're linked, you know. And he's like, he just walks up and he goes, bang, and he takes a right, and he just goes. And I thought, really, like, who is like this? You know, who is like this? Yeah, and just a wellspring of emotions and reverence was coming out at that time. And I think he just really makes sure that the valve is fully blasted open, man. Like, he's like, I'm gonna make sure you have the right spirit when you see this, because you're not gonna sit there admire the situation with your sort of worldly constructs, you know, the corruptions of the flesh, because you're kind of at a different stage. You're like baby pure or something. You're just like like eyes like up to here, and your spirit's just like bam, you know, face on the ground immediately. Yeah, it's really, really amazing. And again, I was just like wondering, like, you know, the robes and all that, because he's usually shown me a little bit more like kind of like, once I saw like a vision of a great castle, you know, you know, and it wasn't like all butterflies and stuff. It was actually like pretty crazy, you know. It was like lightning and stuff, almost more like what you would read when you read the book of Enoch, when Enoch was taken up and he saw this wondrous sort of crystal palace with the crazy flames. That's more like what I was seeing, like, you know, before. And so this time it was so gentle. It was much more like of the standard what people say when they say, oh, you know, went to heaven in a near-death experience and stuff like that, you know. Yeah, it was really that. And then there was a sequence of other sort of interactions which are a little hodgepodge, but they were definitely sort of, I think God was having a certain conversation with me and he wanted to see how my spirit would react. And there was one scene where I'm on the ground and I'm like I'm sort of like flying up on a whirlwind, right? And I was like, oh man, this is quite humbling, because I know maybe that's like the rapture, you know, but also lots of like, you know, I knew that like Elijah had been taken up in a whirlwind, and like all these sort of, Enoch was taken up in a whirlwind, I think. And I knew that was sort of like in a dream phase, even, you know, if God wanted to communicate that, that was reasonably like, you know, it's kind of like a great honor, you know. And I just remember, like, as I'm zapping up, and you know, I used to be really hardcore, like Buddhist, and I gave a lot of reverence to the Buddha. And as I'm flying up, God was like, yeah, you know, you kind of like, you know, you're kind of like into like Buddha or whatever, right? Buddha. And then my hands do one of the mudras, you know, because he wants me to sort of like how I used to be, you know, into that stuff. And I'm just like, no, that's like nothing, you know, that's nothing compared to you, you know. It's like, that's right. And we fly up a little bit more, and then it's like the next scene, and you know, when they say God's a jealous God, it's totally true. Like he'll be like, remember before when you were really into that? I don't really need you to like, you know, say the same things about me, but maybe that'd be nice, you know. He's sort of gangster like that, you know. And I'm like, no, I get it, you know. He's like, oh, that's good, you know. It's really cool. He's a cool guy. We should be very glad. So that's what I wanted to share. Also, yeah, I uploaded a video yesterday. That was sort of like confirmation that, you know, we were really on sort of like the last few moments. And link at the end of the video to that one. If you like the video, consider subscribing and smash the like button. Thanks a lot for tuning in, guys. And I'll catch you on the next one. Adios!